Good morning. I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela, and we are the Castros.
We bring you the news
and the views that make you think.
Sometimes we agree.
Sometimes we don't.
This is News and Views. Now, the Vatican has formally sealed the papal residence and begun official rites following the death of Pope Francis. Cardinal Kevin Farrell, Cardinal Pietro Parolin, and Archbishop Edgar Peña Para sealed the papal apartments in line with tradition. The rite of certification and coffin placement took place Monday at 8 p.m. in the chapel of Casa Santa Marta, where the late Pope resided. Cardinal Farrell, as Camerlengo, officially validated the death declaration during the solemn ceremony. The ritual lasted just under an hour and marked a formal step in transition to elect a new Pope.
Now, Pope Francis has passed away at 88 due to stroke and heart failure, according to the Vatican. Here's a report.
Pope Francis, affectionately called Lolo Kiko by Filipinos, passed away on Monday, April 21, at his residence in Casa Santa Marta, Vatican City. Cardinal Kevin Farrell Camerlengo of the Apostolic Chamber made the announcement 2 hours after the Pope died at 7:35 a.m. According to Vatican Dr. Andrea Arcangeli, Pope Francis died from a stroke and irreversible heart failure. His death certificate also stated that the Pope had fallen into a coma before passing away. Born Jorge Mario Bergoglio in Buenos Aires, Argentina, he was elected as the 266th pontiff of the Roman Catholic Church on March 13, 2013, becoming the first pope from Latin America. The 88-year-old pontiff had recently spent 38 days at Rome's Gemelli Hospital, where he was treated for double pneumonia. His final public appearance took place on Easter Sunday, blessing thousands of faithful at St. Peter's Square. Reverend Father Ari Sison of Santa Rita de Cassia Parish described Pope Francis as a shepherd who transformed the papacy, leading with humility, mercy, and a deep concern for the marginalized.
As a priest, he set a different model of being a shepherd, and he showed what really matters, and it's he was especially close to the people. I was always thinking, what will he do on Easter Sunday? I think that was his goodbye to us, the people.
Pope Francis's funeral will break from the tradition, embracing simpler rites that reflect his lifelong commitment to humility. His body will not be placed on an elevated platform in St. Peter's Basilica during the public viewing. Instead of the customary 3 interlocking coffins made of oak, cypress, and lead, Pope Francis chose a single coffin made of wood and zinc. In 2023, Pope Francis decided he would not be buried in St. Peter's Basilica, but rather in Rome's Santa Maria Maggiore Basilica, close to his favorite icon of the Madonna. Father Gregory Gaston, rector of the Pontificio Collegio Filipino in Rome, confirmed the viewing for Pope Francis will begin on Wednesday, April 23.
The transfer of the Holy Father's body to St. Peter's Basilica for the homage of all the faithful may take place in the morning of Wednesday, April 23.
And as you see all our headliner news, we are, of course, talking about the death of our beloved Catholic Pope, Pope Francis, who died yesterday around 10 in the morning. And so right now, we will have our special tribute or coverage regarding this issue. 2-hour special coverage on the death of Pope Francis. And we will be speaking to a number of guests that will talk about the issue.
Mm-hmm. Now?
Yeah, now we will speak to Father Jerome Ceciliano, Executive Secretary of the CBCP Committee on Public Affairs, for his reaction to Pope Francis's passing. Father, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you also for the invitation.
Father, last time we spoke, that was, I think, a Wednesday before, of course, the activities of Holy Week. And of course, what greeted us yesterday was very sad news of the passing of Pope Francis. What is your reaction to this? How do you feel about this, Father?
Of course, just like many of the Catholics, I was also saddened by the death of the beloved Pope. Mm-hmm. And even if, for example, Pope Francis was already in the hospital for so many months, and then, of course, we kind of expect that this is going to happen, still it came as a shock to me.
Father, alam naman po natin kung marami pong mga binago, mga ginawa si Pope Francis. Ano po ba sa tingin nyo yung most significant change or mensahe na dinala, no, ni Pope Francis bilang isang Santo Papa po sa atin?
Personally, it was about transparency in the church. And
Right.
speaking of transparency, it's not only about financial matters, but also transparency in dealing with erring priests. Priests who are involved in corruption and
Right.
sexual misconduct cases. So when it comes to transparency in financial matters, he very well handled the Vatican bank, and then changed all these officials, and then of course instituted some reforms highlighting the accountability of those managing the finances of the Catholic Church, and even appointed some cardinals to oversee the financial reforms in the Vatican, including the Catholic Church for that matter. And of course, as far as the reforms also regarding the transparency in handling cases of priests involved in corruption and sexual misconduct,
Right.
then we see the Pope really doing his best to implement the reforms in such a way that these priests are not anymore just reassigned to another parish, but he actually made some strides by defrocking them.
Yeah.
Meaning to say, giving, taking away the faculty to celebrate the Eucharist, and then they are removed from the ministry.
Yeah, Father, of course, when Pope Francis began his journey into the papacy, he chose he chose Pope Francis. And of course, with Francis, we all know there's humility, there's simplicity there. What should now the Catholic faithful take away from this, given how he tried to also push for a simple message of being humble just by the mere fact that he chose to wear those simple shoes instead of the gold-laden shoes in the beginning of his papacy?
Those things that you mentioned are just expressions of who he was, a humble person, and making sure that the papacy, as well as the Catholic Church as an institution, became closer to the people. You know very well that a pope can be somebody who is, elusive in a sense because he's a big guy,
Yes.
a big person. But then again, Pope Francis was always visible. In fact, he visited countries that are not visited by many of the previous popes, highlighting, of course, his desire to make the papacy closer to the people, as well as the desire to make the Catholic Church itself or herself closer to the people. Gone are the days when people are just looking at the Pope on television, hearing his messages also on radio, television, or social media. But now you see the Pope in person. And in the advent also of social media, you see so many of these pictures of the Pope smiling, mingling with people, talking to people. That's just how close that the Pope was to the public.
Father, have you had any interactions with the Pope? If so, any memorable ones?
Well, I went to his house at Casa Santa Marta. That was 2 years ago, and I dined in the dining room of that casa, but then the Pope wasn't there. But then I was told by those who reside in that Casa Santa Marta that the Pope would not usually greet the people residing with him in that place, because as a matter of policy, the Pope should just be treated as a very ordinary guy, because he doesn't want anymore to do all these niceties of extending his hands because magmamano yung mga pari doon, because he would be doing that the whole day.
Yeah, that's right.
And so he wouldn't want to do it anymore with priests and others who are with him in the Casa Santa Marta. So again, this is a reflection of the simplicity of the man, and of course, no nonsense, leader of the Catholic Church. He was kind of pragmatic also, in the way he treats things. That's why I think Pope Francis is going to be really a very important figure who should be missed by a lot of us.
Right. And a lot of people are saying na somehow si Pope Francis has humanized the whole Catholic concept to the devotees as well. Pero my question po kasi, I remember Pope Francis was here a decade ago to visit us, as most especially po yung mga victims ng Typhoon Yolanda. Where were you during the time? Was there an interaction in your on your part? And also, how did this visit impacted the lives of the Filipino people?
Well, again, that is to emphasize his nearness to the poor people. And not only the poor people, the marginalized, and the victims, not only of human-made catastrophes, but also natural calamities. And, Pope Francis really wanted to go there, even though at the time, it was already raining very hard. So he insisted that he went there so that he could be with the people, because he really pitied the people who lost their properties and their loved ones in that particular strong typhoon. So you see again here, that Pope Francis is all about caring for the people. He was all about being with the people, especially in their most difficult moments. And I think the impact it created in a lot of us is that we have a caring father figure in the Catholic Church. And I think that should be emulated by many of us, including me as a priest.
And of course, Father, we're still in a period of mourning the Catholic faithful, no? But what happens next? Kasi ang daming questions in the minds of the faithful now. What's going to be happening now, especially that Pope Francis is gone? When will we see possibly a new Pope?
Well, the good thing about the Catholic Church is that everything is in place. So whenever someone passes away, then there is someone who is going to replace him. And then the process is also going to take place, and we call that the conclave. And who is going to be the next pope, we do not know, because the cardinals are the ones deciding about it. And I think the way they choose the pope is not going to be about personalities. There will be a time that these cardinal electors will be meeting, and I guess they're going to discuss the needs of the church at the moment, and then of course the issues besetting the church, and then perhaps tukuyin din nila kung ano ba yung mold o kaya yung figure na hinahanap nila to lead the Catholic Church as we move forward.
Father, meron bang naka-specify na dapat the conclave should start on a certain period after the Pope's passing, or it just happens spontaneously?
Well, after the 9 days of mourning, we call that novendiales. So 9 days siya na si Pope ay andyan dyan sa Vatican bago siya i-inter doon sa Santa Maria Maggiore. Then doon na ang umpisa ng proseso ng pagtitipon-tipon ng mga kardinal. We call that the general congregation. So they will be talking about the issues, they will be discussing about the circumstances that are happening right now in the Catholic Church, and then as we move forward, what are the things needed, including of course maybe the qualities of the leader that who is going to be at the helm of the Catholic Church. So ito yung mga mangyayari. Then after that, magde-decide na ngayon kung kailan yung umpisa ng conclave.
Ayun, Father, speaking of the conclave, is it true na nadidepict sa ibang mga movie na pag nag-start ng conclave, hindi makakalabas ang mga cardinals until a new pope is elected?
Well, when we speak of hindi makakalabas, doon lang naman sa ibig sabihin sa public at large. Ibig sabihin nun, ando doon sila sa Sistine Chapel, and then hindi naman sila doon yung mag-i-stay ng all throughout the process, kasi babalik pa rin naman yan sa kanilang rooms, sa mga kung nasaan sila naka-stay. So hindi naman talaga yung tipong na-separate mo na sa mundo yan. But then when we speak of parang sequestered sila, it means that during the process of election, ando doon talaga sila sa Sistine Chapel, away from the world, away from the eyes of so many people, at sila lang ang magdi-decide nito. Sila lang ang kumbaga ay pipili ng kung sino man ang dapat na maging Santo Papa, and of course, the Holy Spirit as their witness.
Oh. Father, I believe tatlo daw po ang Filipino cardinal na maaaring mag-participate dito sa upcoming conclave. Bukod po kay Cardinal Tagle, sino-sino po ito?
Si Cardinal Joe Advincula, ang Archbishop ng Manila, at si Cardinal Pablo Virgilio David, ang Bishop ng Diocese ng Caloocan. So hindi lang yung sabihin na baka silang tatlo, kundi talagang by law,
Sila po.
kasama sila doon dahil under 80 years old sila.
And of course, no, hindi naman po natin ito maipagkakaila na even po nung naging Santo Papa po si Pope Francis, nasa radar na po si Cardinal Tagle, sinasabi na maaaring siya maging Pope in the future. Kayo po ba sa inyong napag-uusapan niyo po ba 'yon? I'm sure kasi sabi nga daw po very sensitive si Cardinal Tagle on these issues eh. Ayaw niya po napag-uusapan.
Well, totoo naman na hindi naman namin pag-uusapan na dapat siya na maging Santo Papa. Siguro among ourselves, yung mga biruan, managagawa namin. Pero taking it seriously, we are cognizant of the fact that we are not the ones who's going to elect the next Pope. Para sa amin, biruan lang yan. Yung nga lang, parang pakiusap po na lang din, baka yung sobrang na parang ibinibida natin si Cardinal Tagle, baka mag-boomerang pa sa atin.
Right.
Ibig sabihin, let the issue about the death of the Pope be the main issue, and of course the election of the Pope and the qualities of the Pope be the main issue, and not just the personalities. Kasi mahirap yung pagpasok mo na sa conclave, parang ikaw na yung itunuturing ng Santo Papa. Madalas, yung mga ganyan, paglabas ng conclave, hindi tuloy napili. We look at, for example, John Paul II. He was not actually one of the contenders at that time. He was very young during the conclave. But then again, since the cardinal electors at that time couldn't reach a two-thirds majority, ibinaling nila yung kanilang pansin dito kay Pope John Paul II. Sabi nila, magaling yung batang yan. So, doon na lang tayo mag-rally para sa kanya. And so it happened. Kaya nga laging binabanggit sa ganitong circumstance, talagang Holy Spirit andiyan dyan para gumabay sa mga cardinal electors.
Alright, so let take the process run its course. Maraming salamat po sa inyong oras, Father Jerome Siciliano, Executive Secretary of the CBCP Committee on Public Affairs. Magandang umaga po. Now, Quiapo Church held 5 minutes of silence and a mass to mourn the passing of Pope Francis yesterday. For updates, we have mobile journalist Evan Tarinque. Evan, ano na ang nangyayari dyan ngayon?
Diego, Angela, nakadisplay sa altar ng Quiapo Church ang larawan ni Pope Francis bilang paggunita at pagpupugay sa yumaong pinuno ng simbahang Katolika. Makikita sa harapan ng mga larawan ni Pope Francis na nakabalot sa kulay wilang tela, simbolo ng pagluluksa para sa mga pumanaw, kasabayan ng pag-aalay ng panalangin. Pinutunog din ang kampana ng simbahan bilang pakikiisa sa panawagan ni CBCP President Bishop Pablo Cardinal Virgilio David. Nagkaroon din ng ilang minutong katahimikan at basbas sa larawan ng Santo Papa kagabi. Pansamantala ring binago ang bahagi ng panalangin bayan upang ialay ito para sa yumaong Santo Papa at idinagdag ang mga katagang naway makamta ng walang hanggang kaligtasan at tumanggap ng makalangit na gantimpala. Tuloy-tuloy naman ang pagdating ng mga deboto sa Quiapo Church upang magbigay-pugay kay Pope Francis. Ang ilang nakausap ko, hindi mapigilan maging emosyonal nang marinig ang balita ng kanyang pagpalaw. Isa sa kanila, personal pang nakasalumuha si Pope Francis noong kanyang pagbisita dito sa Pilipinas noong 2015. Anyay hindi niya malilimutan ang kabaitang ipinamalas ng Santo Papa. Diego, Angela.
Yes, Evan, ano ba ang mga ibang schedule dyan ng misa for Pope Francis? And would you have any information at sino yung mga cardinal, if ever, mag-preside over yung mga masses?
Yes, Diego, tuloy-tuloy yung hourly mass dito sa loob ng dito sa may Quiapo Church. Tuloy-tuloy yan. Binago nga nila yung ilang parte ng kanilang misa para magkaroon ng dedication para nga dito sa pagpanaw ni Pope Francis. Pero aside from that, kanina mga nakausap natin yung ilang lay ministers sa loob ng simbahan. Bukod sa pagkakaroon ng imahe ni Pope Francis sa harapan ng altar ng Quiapo Church ay parang wala pang ibang plano or wala pang ibang updates kung ano pa yung magkakaroon dito sa loob ng simbahan ngayong linggo. Diego.
Oo. Evan, meron na ba tayong mga nakita dyan na mga devotees, no? Na mga Katoliko dyan na nagpunta na para mag-alay ng dasal para nga dito sa pagpanaw ni Pope Francis?
Actually, Angela, marami na tayo kanilang nakita na dumating dito sa Quiapo para nagbigay ng dasal dito nga kay Pope Francis. No? Actually, dalawa nga sa nakausap natin, talaga nagkaroon ng personal interaction with Pope Francis noong bumisita siya dito sa Pilipinas. Isa dito ay yung nakasalumuhan, isang lay minister nakasalumuhan ni si Pope Francis sa may Malacanang at dito nga sa may UST, no, kung saan nga nagkaroon ng misa itong si Pope Francis. So, isa namang dating membro ng isang church congregation dito sa Manila, nakasalubong naman niya or nakasalamuhan naman niya nung bumisita si Pope Francis naman dito sa may Tacloban. No? So dalawang different individuals pero iisa lang yung nating narinig na kwento from them is hindi nila makakalimutan yung talagang ang bait at pagkaroon ng mababang loob nito nga ni Pope Francis dahil para talagang iba daw yung pakiramdam. Pagkausap mo at kaharap mo daw itong si Pope Francis at talagang hanggang sa ngayon ay talagang nakakapanindig balahibo pag sa tuwing naalala nila yung kanilang interaction sa kanya. Angela.
Yes, Evan, may nakakausap ka ba dyan sa loob ng simbahan mismo to ask if ever any of the, well, of course, pag-uusapan ngayon si Cardinal Tagle, si Cardinal David, if madadalaw sila sa Quiapo Church?
Yes, Diego, no, sa ngayon wala pang update kung may cardinal bang darating dito. No? We have heard Cardinal David will be going to the Vatican in the next few days. No? Nagkaroon na ng announcement. The next few days, lilipad na siya papunta sa Vatican within this week. Pero aside from that, no, kung may kakaroon ba ng ibang cardinal na pupunta dito sa Pilipinas or dito sa may Quiapo Church at magmimisa, taikong pa yung pamunuan ng Quiapo Church pagdating sa ganyan. Diego.
Alright, sige. Maraming salamat sa iyong oras ang ating mobile journalist Evan Tarinque.
Now, Lingayen Dagupan Archbishop Socrates Villegas pays tribute to Pope Francis, calling him, quote, Jesus for our age. In a statement, Villegas recalled how the Pope personally encouraged him in Rome to stand firm against extrajudicial killings amid threats and ridicule from authorities. He also said the pontiff served with humility, bridged divides between believers and non-believers, and challenged complacency with bold moral clarity. During Duterte's presidency, Villegas was a vocal critic of the administration's attacks on the church and its controversial war on drugs. Oo, yan kasi naglabasa na rin yung video ni former President Duterte ng yung saying things about the Pope in early stages of the presidency, no. Of course, he apologized after that, no? But si Socrates Bishop si Villegas has been known to be fending off these attacks time and again, even answering back with peace. Ika nga, sabi nila, hindi siya natakot sumagot.
But what you're seeing right now sa ating right side of the screen ay the live feed, no? Ng St. Peter's Basilica dyan sa Vatican City. Ang sinasabing ang pinaka-importante at pinaka-holy na lugar dyan sa Vatican City. Oo. So, mamaya, pag-usapan pa natin, di ba? Kasi that St. Peter's Basilica can hold 60,000 people. That right now ay isang dambana nga daw na para sa pananampalataya at pamamaalam kay Pope Francis.
When you see the area is very calm and serene right now, but if you remember when Pope Francis was elected as Pope, the scene from that area, of St. Peter's Square, was very, not wild, but I would say very energetic.
Yes.
Especially when Viva Habemus Papa.
Habemus Papa.
Habemus Papa was declared and people were wondering, sino yung Pope? And then he came out.
Yes.
The first Pope from South America.
But how can also we forget, diba, yung scene also na siya lang nag-iisa dyan sa St. Peter's Basilica during the COVID-19 pandemic. At nagma siya mag-isa. Dahil alam naman niya makikinig sa kanya online. Diba? Pinagdadasal niya ang buong mundo dahil nga dun sa nararanasan natin pandemic. during that time. But we'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News.
Thousands of people gathered here in St. Peter's Square this evening to say a rosary prayer in honor of 88-year-old Pope Francis, who died at 7:35 this morning, Rome time. This evening, the Vatican released a statement about how he died. It was a stroke that caused a coma and then led to heart failure. They also released his final testament, in which he said he wants to be buried at the St. Mary Major Basilica in Rome, not here at the Vatican where other popes are buried. Pope Francis was last seen in public on Easter Sunday when he came out on the balcony, the same balcony that he emerged on when he was elected pope. But on Easter Sunday, he was in a wheelchair and very frail. He did manage to bless the crowd and wish them a happy Easter. After that, he did something typical of Pope Francis. He got in the Pope Mobile and went around and greeted the people in St. Peter's Square. Pope Francis has always enjoyed being close to the people. The cardinals are starting to come into Rome, and they will have tomorrow their first meeting. The funeral is likely to be by the end of the week. After the funeral, there are the novendiales, which are the 9 days of mourning. After the novendiales, they can select a date for the conclave to choose the next pope.
Noi ti ringraziamo per i doni elargiti alla Chiesa con il ministero apostolico di Papa Francesco.
Pope Francis' past work with marginal communities allowed him to bring heightened awareness about the plight of disadvantaged people in Latin America and the world. He took the name Francis, drawing connections to the 13th century St. Francis of Assisi, who saw his calling to rebuild the simple spirit of the Church. As Cardinal Jorge Mario Bergoglio, he was among the curas villeros, or priests, who worked in Argentina's shantytowns.
Es un papa que me trae a la conducción de la Iglesia y las experiencias latinoamericanas, por ejemplo, de las comunidades eclesiales de base, del trabajo en las villas, de la pobreza, de la idiosincrasia de nuestro pueblo, y eso se traduce en cosas concretas.
He was outspoken about the environment, migration, racial and income inequality, and other touchy subjects.
Él hizo frente a tres temas que para mí son fundamentales. El primer tema tiene que ver con el ordenamiento del Banco Vaticano, y ahí más aún juzgó una persona, de acuerdo que eso no se había llevado a cabo en mucho tiempo. El segundo punto hizo igual frente al tema de los abusos, en donde abusos sexuales cometidos por abusos de poder, abusos sexuales y abusos de conciencia cometidos por miembros de la Iglesia Católica.
Father Julio Lancelotti, who has been serving the homeless population for over 3 decades, reflects on the Pope's doctrine.
Eu acho que para a América Latina e para o mundo é o legado de Jesus, é o legado do amor ao irmão.
His insistence on simplicity earned history's first Latin American Pope the nickname the People's Pope.
Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News, and we're still on our 2-hour special coverage on the passing of Pope Francis. Now, dubbed the People's Pope, Pope Francis touched millions with his simplicity and heart for the poor. Now, let's take a closer look at his roots in this report.
For 12 years, Jorge Mario Bergoglio served as the head of the Catholic Church. Since his inception in 2013, he took on the name Pope Francis and was declared the People's Pope. Born December 17, 1936, still photograph of a young Bergoglio with family in Buenos Aires, Argentina to an Italian immigrant couple. He was 21 years old when he developed severe pneumonia and part of his right lung was removed. In 1958, just as he finished his degree as a chemical technician, Bergoglio felt the call to serve the Lord. In that same year, he entered the novitiate of the Society of Jesus. And in 1960, he first took his oath as a Jesuit. The year that followed until 1963, he studied humanities and philosophy at San Miguel Seminary in Buenos Aires. Still photograph of a young Father Bergoglio giving Mass in 1969, was finally ordained a priest. June 27, 1992, he was appointed Auxiliary Bishop of Buenos Aires. And in 1998, became Archbishop. As one, Bergoglio became known for his simplicity and humility, no flashy cars, and his closeness to the needy. In 2001, Pope John Paul II declared promoted Bergoglio into the College of Cardinals. In 2013, when Pope Benedict XVI resigned due to illness, his fellow cardinals elected Bergoglio as the new leader of the Church, the first from the Americas, the Jesuit order, and with the name Francis, in honor of Saint Francis of Assisi, whose values he mirrored throughout his lifetime. Mobile journalist Mary Monreyes, We Are One News.
President Bongbong Marcos expressed deep sorrow over the passing of Pope Francis, calling him the best pope of his lifetime. He said the Philippines joins the global Catholic community in mourning the loss of a spiritual leader who inspired through kindness and simplicity. Marcos praised the late pontiff for his humility and compassion, qualities that endeared him to millions, especially Filipinos who fondly called him Lolo Kiko. He added that Pope Francis's example brought many back to the Church and that his life was a testament to Christ-like love with a legacy that will continue to guide and uplift the world.
Other world leaders are also joining in global grief to honor Pope Francis. Here's a report.
From world leaders to faithful followers, the passing of Pope Francis has sparked a global outpouring of grief and remembrance. U.S. President Donald Trump extended his condolences, remembering Pope Francis with a message of rest and blessings to him and all who loved him. On Truth Social, Trump announced that he will attend the Pope's funeral, accompanied by his wife Melania, who is a devout Catholic. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, who was among the last leaders to meet the pontiff, offered his heartfelt condolences. Vance visited the Vatican with his family and exchanged Easter greetings with the Pope on Sunday, April 20. For his part, Britain's King Charles reflected on the Pope's final Easter greeting and the devotion he shared with both the Church and the world throughout his life. Russian President Vladimir Putin also offered his condolences. He remembered the Pope's role in promoting dialogue between the Russian Orthodox and Roman Catholic churches. Meantime, Argentina's President Javier Milei reminisced about his honor to have known Pope Francis. He also highlighted the wisdom and goodness the Pope exemplified despite the world's differences. For her part, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni shared that she had the privilege of receiving the Pope's friendship and advice, which continued to inspire her even during challenging times. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas also expressed deep sorrow, remembering Pope Francis as a loyal friend of the Palestinian people and a strong advocate for peace and justice. He recalls the Pope's visit to Bethlehem and his calls to end the conflict in Gaza. Meantime, Israeli President described the pontiff as a man of deep faith and boundless compassion.
Now, as the Church grieves the loss of Pope Francis, attention is expected to turn to the College of Cardinals, who will eventually gather to elect his successor. Of the 135 cardinal electors under age 80, 108 were appointed by Pope Francis, raising expectations that the next pope may continue his progressive legacy. The College of Cardinals, now less Eurocentric, reflects the pontiff's effort to diversify church leadership globally. The new pope could come from outside Europe again, with strong contenders from Asia, Africa, and Latin America. That includes our very own Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, the former Archbishop of Manila. Final decision will be announced when white smoke rises from the Sistine Chapel, signifying the church's new leader.
Now, let's take a look at the situation at Manila Cathedral. Mobile journalist Merimon Reyes is now on the ground with the latest. Hey Merimon, tapos na ba yung misa para kay Pope Francis?
Magandang umaga sa inyo. Yes, katatapos lang nitong Mass for the Eternal Repose of Pope Francis, ang kilalangan natin bilang si Lolo Kiko, kung saan inalala kanina yung pagiging mapagpakumbabang tao ni Pope Francis at kung gaano siya nagsilbing inspirasyon sa lahat ng mga tao. Isa rin sa pinakatumatak talaga is yung pagbisita niya nga dito sa Pilipinas, wherein in 2015 nag-hold din ng Mass dito mismo sa Manila Cathedral si Pope Francis at nakipaghalubilo sa mga kapatid natin, Balita, nandito man daw sa Maynila, o yung mga pinuntahan niya, lalong-lalo na yung mga naging biktima nga ng Typhoon Yolanda. At ayon kanina kay Manila Archbishop Reverend Father Jose Cardinal Advincula, mas maganda raw na bukod dito sa pag-grieve kay Pope Francis sa kanyang pagkamatay, gamitin daw siyang inspirasyon para ipagpatuloy yung paggagawa ng good deeds, pagtulong sa kapwa natin mga Pilipino, at mas lalo daw isa puso ang pagpapractice ng pagmamahal sa kapwa-tao.
Yes, Merimon, of course, ang tanong dyan is what other activities na mga hindi nakapunta dyan, mga Catholic faithful sa Mass na yan, are there other activities na pwede natin ma-expect na mapuntahan?
Yes, kahapon kasi nagkaroon ng 13 minutes ng tolling of bells to honor yung mga kataon ng papacy ni Pope Francis. Pero parang ngayong araw, bukod doon sa mga misa na isasagawa, meron ding candle lighting mismo doon sa isang bahagi ng Manila Cathedral para sa mga gustong mag-alay ng kanilang mga dasal, panalangin, magsindi ng kandila o kaya naman ay mag-alay ng bulaklak para kay Lolo Kiko.
Yes, naglabas ba, Merimon, ng mensahe si Cardinal David? Kasi alam natin si Archbishop of Manila, usually may statement yung mga cardinals na yan sa area of jurisdiction niya.
Yes, so far yung pinaka-inaabangan pa natin at titignan din nga natin ngayon kung magkakaroon tayo ng pagkakataon na makausap si Archbishop Advincula para rin makuha kung ano nga ba ang plano ngayon ng kanyang diocese, ano ang plano ng laity ng mga kaparian dito sa Maynila. Kasi for sure, pagkatapos nitong araw na to ay magiging busy na sila at pupuntahan din natin mamaya ang CBCP dito sa Intramuros para rin makita pa kung may ibang impormasyon pa tayong makukuha. Lalong-lalo na pagkatapos ng 9 days ng grieving sa pagkamatay nga ni Pope Francis, ay inaasahan na natin ang pag-elect sa bagong Santo Papa.
Of course, sorry, I'd like to ask, yung papal nuncio kasi, di ba, naka-reside ata sa Intramuros yan. May statement ba siyang dinabas sa passing ni Pope Francis?
Yes, kanina nandito rin mismo si Archbishop Charles Brown, kasama siya na nag-preside din ng misa ngayong araw. Pero bukod kasi dito, ang narinig natin kanina ay si Reverend Advincula at isa pa nga sa kanilang dinadama talaga sa ngayon, kaya wala pang masabi na impormasyon tungkol sa sunod na gagawin ng simbahan, ay dinadama nila itong pagkamatay talaga ni Lolo Kiko. At ang maganda raw talaga sa ngayon muna, alalahanin kung ano nga ba yung naging papel ng Santo Papa sa simbahan, sa mga kapatid nating Katoliko, at ano nga ba yung susunod pang dapat na gawin, lalo pa na nabigla ang mga tao sa pagkamatayan ni Lolo Kiko. Pero so far wala pa tayong nakukuhang statement mula kanila Archbishop Charles Brown nor sa Archdiocese of Manila.
May mga nakausap ka ba ng mga deboto dyan tungkol sa kanilang nararamdaman sa pagpanaw nga ni Pope Francis?
Yes, nakausap natin sila Sister Apple, sila ang mga lekom na nandito mismo assigned sa Manila Cathedral, pero galing sila sa Our Lady of Loreto Parish sa Sampaloc, Manila. At isa sa pinaka-naalala nga nila, nung nandito 2015, lahat ng kung anong kailangan daw nilang gawin para sa araw na yun, nung buwan ng January, isinantabi nila para abangan kita daw talaga ng personal itong si Pope Francis. At bukod dito, ang nasabi nga nila, nakakakilabot daw na makita, marinig na magsalita ng personal itong si Lolo Kiko. Dahil doon daw nila naramdaman yung embodiment talaga ng isang Diyos na direktang nakikipag-interact sa mga tao. Kaya itong araw na ito, dahil nga Easter Tuesday, supposedly masaya na araw ito kasi nga muli pagkabuhay ni Jesus, pero naramdaman daw nila yung lalong pagiging malungkot ngayon kahit na Easter Tuesday dahil nga sa bigla ang pagkamatay ni Lolo Kiko. Yung iba nga lang sabi sayang kasi may mga nakausap din tayo dito na mga turista at sabi nila pupunta daw sila sana ngayon ng Europa para mapuntahan itong si Pope Francis, pero dahil nabigla sila at nandito pa sila ngayon sa Pilipinas, hindi raw nila alam kung paano nila haharapin yung pagpunta nila mismo sa Vatican, knowing na yung inaabangan nila pupuntahan nilang Santo Papa hindi nila maabot ang buhay.
Again, siguro paalala lang natin sa ating mga deboto kung anong oras ulit yung mga misa dyan para kay Pope Francis. And kung meron bang live streaming ito para dun sa mga devotees din na hindi makakapunta ng personal dyan sa simbahan.
Yes, so far bukas buong araw ang Manila Cathedral para sa mga gustong mag-alay ng kanilang bulaklak, magsindi ng kanilang kandila at mag-offer ng kanilang mga dasalin, hindi lang para sa eternal repose po of Francis, pero para sa kanila rin daw mga dalangin at hibik ng puso. Lahat naman ng mga misa na isinasagawa at mga prayers na gagawin sa mga susunod na araw ay naka-livestream din sa official social media pages ng Manila Cathedral. At kung gusto raw na sumali sa mga ito o mag-volunteer para sa mga susunod pang aktibidad na may kinalaman dito sa pag-honor kay Lolo Kiko, maaari naman daw silang kumontak sa social media pages ng Manila Cathedral.
All right, thank you for the updates, mobile journalist Merimon Reyes.
Now, let's talk to Edison Cham to share their experience working on the Pope Mobile for Pope Francis's visit to the Philippines in 2015. That was 10 years ago. Magandang umaga po sa inyo, sir.
Hi, good morning. Magandang umaga sa inyo, sir.
Opo. Ano po ang inyo pong naging reaksyon ng inyo pong nalaman ang pagpanaw ni Pope Francis?
Very sad. I was shocked and very sad. Sad po tayo.
Alright, can you share with us po, no? Kasi dun po sa intro namin sa inyo, kayo po yung isa sa mga nag-ayos nga po ng Pope Mobile when he was here noong 2015. Can you share with us that experience po?
I was commissioned by, at that time, Father Dave Concepcion. I was able to talk to him and sinabi nga nila na since I did the first Pope Mobile of Pope John Paul, could I make the second one for Pope Francis? So I said, okay, gagawin natin. And I chose the jeepney as I called it natin sa Philippines. Yan ang ginamit natin as the kimo for the Pope Mobile.
Are there specific features po na nilagay po natin, customized po talaga for Pope Francis na wala po doon sa kay Pope John Paul at the time?
Yeah, I think at this time is, kasi si Pope Francis is simplicity ang gusto nila. So we were instructed to by the Vatican securities. They flew over several times. At sinabi na ito lang ang gusto nilang mangyari. Pinakasimple ko na gawa as a jeep. Naman lang siya.
Meron po ba kayong close encounter with Pope Francis during that time?
We were always at the siguro mga less than 1 or 2 meters away. Kasi we always have a backup vehicle sa likod. Lagi namin sinusunod sa sasakyan just to make sure that everything's okay po siya.
And how was it po? Given po you have close proximity.
Medyo may konting, may konting tingling. May konting, mafe-feel mo. There's something there.
Kasi nga po, yung mga thousands of people who flocked there sa UST at that time, sa Quirino Grandstand,
na nag-abang.
Na nag-abang po sila. Talagang kahit di nila masyado nakita, knowing lang daw na we were in the same soil with Pope Francis, malaking bagay na daw po yun sa kanila. Compared pa po sa inyo, talagang close proximity kayo pag gumawa ng Pope Mobile.
Yes, ma'am. At laging, pag nahahawakan lang ko nila yung Pope Mobile, they feel na talagang medyo blessed na sila.
So yung
mga
Pope Mobile na nagamit, nasaan siya ngayon?
Nasa office namin, nasa naka-park. It's being preserved sa office namin ngayon, sa Pasig ko.
Kasi if ever po in the future, I'm sure madami magiging interested na tignan yan. Open ba kayo dyan?
Yes, sir. Anytime just give us a call. Pwede naman namin i-display kahit saan gusto natin. Kahit sa Santo Domingo Church, kahit saan pwede tayo.
Pero as of this moment, hindi na siya commissioned. In other words, naka-display na lang.
Yes, laging naka-display lang siya. Hindi nagagamit siya. Laging mini-maintain, properly maintained siya.
Alright, siguro po, pa-share na lang din po siguro ng pinaka-message na lang po na siguro sa lahat po ng ginawa ni Pope Francis, saan niyo po siya pinaka-maaalala?
Pagka simplicity lang niya siya. Napaka-simple na tao lang siya. Yan lang ho. I'm sorry.
We were all
I'm out
lost
of the
for
country,
words
wala
sa
ako
kanyang...
kaya medyo nasa site lang ako nagpapa-interview. Sorry.
Alright.
Alright. Sige po, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras.
Sige,
Edison
salamat
Cham.
po. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Alright. Si Sir Edison
Yes.
Cham po ang presidente and
Ano.
chairman ng Armored Transport Plus Incorporated.
Pero no matter who you talk to, no matter who you talk to, it's all they can say is he's a simple man.
Yeah.
A very, very
Full
simple
of humility,
man.
kindness,
It's not to
and
say
love.
it's not to say that the other popes were not simple. It's just each pope had their own characteristics. Like Benedict, Pope Benedict was very holy and pious, but ang style niya is scholarship, di ba? Si Pope John Paul II naman, his style naman was parang through entertainment. He brought back, kasi at that time when John Paul became the Pope, the Catholic Church was one of its lowest points. In other words,
Right.
in terms of number of people attending daily mass, bumabagsak na. And Pope John Paul II brought all of these Catholics back into the fold by being very enigmatic, charismatic, and he was an entertainer, actor. So, may kanya-kanyang katangian.
Yes, and dito nga si Pope Francis, na nakita naman natin yung pagiging inklusibo niya sa lahat ng bagay, pagiging humble niya, at saka syempre yung pagmamahal niya
Tsaka
sa mga marginalized sector.
Mind you,
At saka tulad yung nabanggit ko kanina, talagang humanize nga yung concept ng Catholic Church. In fact, a lot of people are saying na, di ba, before he was a bouncer, yung kumbaga parang pinakita din niya na before this, ito ako. Di ba? He was a bouncer, bago
pero
siya natapos
ano
ng chemical
mind you,
technician. He loved tango, he loves to cook.
Hindi just because namatay ang tao, sinasabi natin is humble and we're humanizing him. Actually, there are proof na even in his first stages as Pope, na hinahanap siya ng security. Because
Tumatakas daw siya.
nawawala siya sa Vatican, and then when they found him, si Pope, he walked out of the back entrance ng Vatican into the outskirts ng Vatican City where the Roman restaurants are.
Yes.
At he was giving food or sharing meals, mingling with the street peddlers, yung mga nagbebenta ng mga gamit sa gilid. And he was really interacting without cameras. Nahuli lang siya ng camera. That's why people know about this incident. But he was doing this behind cameras. So,
Before we let you go, para sa another gap natin, yun nga, yung marami kasi siyang changes na ginawa, diba? Sa pagiging humble niya, yung sa coffee niya, 'di ba? Gusto niya doon lang siya sa simple na wooden coffin na ilalagay, at he's going to be the first pope na malilibing after 100 years outside the Vatican City. All right, Diego.
Don't go away because we're not done yet. Stay with us.
The death of a pope initiates a centuries-old ritual to elect a new pontiff. It begins with 9 days of funeral rites, during which the pope is buried. Cardinals are coming to Rome from around the world to participate in that funeral mass, as are heads of state. Then the conclave procedures begin. There are a few days of closed meetings. These are when the cardinals get together and meet in secret. They discuss the problems of the church. They're receiving reports from all the different Vatican offices of what the financial situation is, what the problems are facing the church around the world, and what are the qualities of a pontiff that are needed to bring the church forward. At a certain point, they stop those meetings and the conclave begins. The first day starts with a mass in the morning and a primary vote in the afternoon. If a pontiff is not elected in that first vote, the ballot papers are burned. The smoke comes out of the Sistine Chapel chimney. If it's black, it means no pope has been elected. The cardinals return the next morning. They have 2 ballots in the morning, 2 ballots in the afternoon, until the pope is elected. At that point, the white smoke comes out of the chimney. The world knows that a pope has been elected, and he comes out onto the loggia of St. Peter's Basilica, and we hear those famous words, Habemus Papam, we have a pope.
Habemus Papam.
Welcome back. You're still watching News and Views here on One News, and this is the second hour of our coverage on the passing of Pope Francis, which happened yesterday, unfortunately, on Easter Monday.
Yes, and the Philippine Jesuits have offered prayers for Pope Francis following his death on Easter Monday, April 21. In a Facebook post, the Jesuits prayed for his soul, recalling his virtuous leadership. They also expressed hope that Pope Francis would find eternal happiness with God. At Ateneo de Manila University, Jesuits set up a memorial corner with a cutout of Pope Francis and a statue of Saint Ignatius of Loyola. The space honors the Pope's legacy of faith, humility, and service.
As the world mourns, we look back at the legacy Pope Francis leaves after more than a decade at the helm of a Catholic Church. Here's the story.
March 13, 2013, the beginning of Pope Francis's leadership. A pope with a modern and progressive vision for the Catholic Church. He was known for his compassion for the poor and promotion of peace, which is why he is loved by Catholics around the world. One of the Pope's main goals was to help the poor and oppressed. He has also devoted time to pray for the end of the ongoing war between Ukraine and Russia and the war between Israel and Hamas. The pontiff also made time to meet with world leaders to call for peace, justice, and the rights of migrants. During his leadership, Pope Francis strengthened dialogue with other religions. He promoted cooperation and mutual respect despite differences in beliefs. He is also known for his message of forgiveness, mercy, and humility. While reinforcing the traditional doctrine of the Church, his perspective on the controversial issue of divorce was more progressive. According to the Pope, sometimes it's morally necessary for a couple to separate in order to protect their children. His statements regarding the LGBTQIA+ community was also praised by many.
Persone gay e cerca il Signore e ha buona volontà, ma chi sono io per giudicarla?
Pope Francis also gave attention to environmental issues and how to protect the earth. For him, climate change is a moral issue that the Church should address. In over a decade of Pope Francis's leadership, he has become one of the most influential leaders in history. For News 5, I'm Brian Basa, and we are One News.
Now, for some people who are asking what happens now, ngayon na meron tayong 9 days of mourning sa pagpanaw nga ni Pope Francis, sinasabi nga, base dun sa ating mga readings, nasa state sila na tinatawag na interregnum.
Yes,
ito yung
interregnum.
pagpanaw ng isang Santo Papa hanggang makakuha sila ng papalit sa kanya through the conclave.
And then what you expect now is yung mga cardinals that are part of the voting will be arriving sa Italy, sa Vatican, to attend the funeral, and after which they will convene as College of Cardinals. Not yet as hindi pa siya naka-conclave, no? But they will then receive reports from all the departments sa loob ng Vatican and some parts of the world, yung mga diocese, to receive ano ba yung kailangan. Like for example,
issues na dapat na
so if for example they see finances or more doctrine, or kailangan mag-elevate ng doctrine at mag-reconstitute like Vatican I to Vatican II, then they will look at all the popes kung sino mga na-appoint ba ni Francis that have specific skill sets na could address this issue. Then that's
at saka doon din nila iisipin ano ba yung direction ng Catholic Church moving forward.
Yes, that's what we were saying. And also yung then they start yung initial votes. As you were saying, they can't vote for themselves. But kung may common name na lumalabas pero hindi overwhelming ang support, yung mga may common names, mga duplicates, yung tinatawag nila, yun ang ma-elevate daw sa next round. Tapos yung mga walang votes, yun ang
parang na-eliminate na sila sa voting process.
Tapos wala pa rin, sunog, black smoke.
Kaya sabi nga nila, this is, the whole process is a culture, a tradition, and politics. all-in-one. And we will see it. And also dun sa mga nagtatanong, so what happens now habang wala pang namumuno, no? As of this time, dyan sa Catholic Church natin, ang parang pinaka-OIC nila dyan ay yung tinatawag nila na Camerlengo.
Camerlengo.
Oo, siya yung nag-announce ng passing ni Pope Francis also. Ng isang Santo Papa, ganun lagi. Siya yung parang mamamahala muna, pinaka-OIC.
He's the caretaker of the Vatican.
Yes, pero hindi siya pwedeng magbago ng mga polisiya.
No. The Camerlengo is limited to holding forth. In other words, kung ano yung mga rituals na dapat pagdaanan ng simbahan bago mag-elect ng bagong papa, yun ang gagawin niya. But you have to remember, there is still yung what's his name? Si Pietro Parolin, Cardinal. He's the Secretary of State and he's next to Pope Francis. So he can make decisions without changing doctrine.
Yes, importante yan kasi nga,
without changing doctrine.
we have to remember as well na sa Vatican, it is also a government na kailangan pamahalaan. Diba? That's why importante na malaman natin sino yung magdedesisyon, sino yung magiging OIC habang nag-aantay tayo ng papalit.
But mind you, si Pope Francis was one of the first popes ever to make certain decisions sa loob ng church sa Vatican without consulting the College of Cardinals. Kasi dati yung mga ibang pope, kukonsulta sa College of Cardinals yan kung tama ba yung desisyon, di ba? Pero Pope Francis, in order to address certain issues that are hounding the church, parang yung mga sexual abuses issues and finances, he did not consult several of the College of Cardinals so he can make his own decisions.
But anyway, he's the Pope at that time. So what we're trying to point out here, yung mga Carmelengo, yung magiging OIC habang wala pang Pope, ay magtutuloy lang sila doon sa proseso ng Vatican government kasi hindi sila pwedeng magbago ng mga polisiya.
Tsaka there's a structure naman in place. So nandun pa rin naman yung all of them.
Yes. All right. The Catholic faithful mourn and honor Pope Francis following his passing on Monday, April 21. We now go to our mobile journalist, Amy Atienza, for the latest from Caloocan Parish. Hey, Amy, ano ba yung mga activities ginagawa dyan ngayon sa Caloocan Parish para nga i-honor itong si Pope Francis?
Good morning, Angela Diego. Well, so far dito sa San Roque Cathedral Parish sa Caloocan, wala pa naman masyadong nangyayari pero kanina nakausap na natin yung ilan sa mga deboto talaga na bumisita daw dito para ipagdasal nga si Pope Francis. Mamayang 12 noon, abangan natin na magkakaroon ng misa at ang pagdating din ni Cardinal David dito sa San Roque Cathedral. So yun pa lang so far yung mga activities and syempre encouraged yung mga pupunta dito na magsindi nga daw ng kandila para ipagdasal si Pope Francis. Angela Diego.
Yes, were you able, Amy, to talk to devotees na dumaan dyan or may mga sentiments nila or pakiramdam nila with the passing of Pope Francis?
Yes, actually may nakausap ako dito kanina. Isang 80-year-old na devotee at sabi niya nga medyo malungkot daw siya kasi nga daw hindi niya nakita si Pope Francis nung bumisita dito sa Pilipinas at yun nga dahil nga malakas yung pananalig niya dito, gusto niya daw sanang makita pa bago nga din daw pumanaw ito pero yun nga with unfortunate circumstances ipagdadasal niya na lang daw talaga si Pope Francis and syempre mamayang 12 noon babalik din daw siya dito. Marami na din actually Diego na back and forth pumupunta dito para magsindi ng kandila, kasal every hour. Simula yan ang mga around 8 a.m. in the morning. At yun nga, by 12 noon and also siguro by hapon daw, ini-expect nga na magkakaroon din ng rosary dito sa San Roque Cathedral.
So again, Amy, baka naman you want to share with our viewers ano yung mga magiging notable activities moving forward. Of course, mga mensahe from priests and cardinals or bishops. Baka meron special talks na pwedeng abangan ng mga viewers natin.
So far, iniintay pa natin kasi yung pagdating din ng ilang mga parish priests dito sa San Roque Cathedral. So mag-gather daw talaga yung mga pari dito mamaya ng 12 noon kasi yun yung anticipated mass na announce din naman sa kanila. And invited not just the people from Caloocan pero everyone na gustong umattend dito sa may San Roque Cathedral, invited naman daw. So yun yung pinakaabangan. And also kung gusto naman daw magsindi ng kandila, welcome din sila dito. And yung sa mga gusto pang magpadasal, welcome din naman dito sa parish office ng San Roque Cathedral.
Oo, pasilip na lang kami, Amy, yung surrounding mo dyan, yung mismong Caloocan Parish, para makita din namin yung paano sila nag-set up ng in memoriam of Pope Francis.
Okay, so sige, ikot ka lang kayo dito sa San Roque Cathedral. So ito yung entrance. And so far, kung makikita nyo naman sa loob, medyo wala pang tao. Pero may ilan na solemnly praying dito sa San Roque Cathedral. And dito sa may harap, actually, meron silang inilagay na image ni Pope Francis para dun sa mga titimba na gusto ding makita talaga yung imahe ni Pope Francis. So dito yan sa may right part ng simbahan. So ito yung current situation dito sa loob. And ito yung mismong image. Kung nakikita nyo, ito yung image ni Pope Francis. Dito yan sa may harap ng altar din. So marami nang lumapit dito. Yung iba pwede din naman daw mag-pictures dong at hindi makaka-distract dun sa mismong solemnity nitong lugar, pati na rin mamaya sa misa. So ito, mas lapitan pa natin. Marami na raw actually yung pumunta dito kaninang kahapon, pati kaninang umaga. Pero ina-expect pa nila na magkakaroon pa nga ng dagsa ng tao mamayang 12 noon dahil nga magkakaroon sila ng misa. Angelo Castro.
Amy, aside from yung mga masses and mga talks na moving forward, no, kasi alam natin, 9 days to 9 days yung magiging buong rite ng funeral ni Pope Francis. Among those 9 days, kung may narinig ka, ano pa ibang activities ng dyan, at least sa the church that you're in?
Well, so far, no, nakausap ko yung parish office, no, planning pa lang daw sila sa kung ano pa yung mga activities. Pero sigurado yung misa lang talaga ng 12 noon mamaya. And syempre, nandito na din nga si Cardinal Balita na anticipate din, nalilipad siya going to Rome around this week. Though wala pa daw confirmed date kung kailan yan. Pero nag-aayos na sila dito para nga sa mga papers na mangyayari. Mamaya, tingnan natin kung makakapanayam din natin si Cardinal patungkol sa pag-alis niya at papunta niya sa Roma.
Ay, Amy, yung church pala, is that open 24 hours? So in other words, kung gusto mag-vigil ang ibang mga Catholic faithful, they can do so at any time?
Unfortunately, hindi sila open 24 hours, no? Up until 8 p.m. lang sila.
Okay.
Pero yun nga, titingnan pa nila kung kailangan nila mag-extend ng hours dahil nga marami ditong bumibisita. At yun nga, hindi nga lang tayo sigurado pa kung 24 hours, pero most likely mag-extend nga and dahil nga din sa mga gusto mong sita at magtindi ng kanila para kay Pope Francis.
Well, going back yesterday, naman sila patunog ng kanilang kampana dyan, ano?
Yes, Angela. Nagpatunog din sila ng kampana nung around 4 p.m. nung inanunsyo nga ng Vatican News na namatay na o kumanaw na ito si Pope Francis. At marami na nga rin daw yung bumisita dito para nga mag-send na kanilang prayers. At yun nga, may mga devotees na rin na nakiisa dun sa mga candle lighting activities na ginawa nila dito. Yung iba nagsistay dito for rosary and yung iba talaga nagbibigay lang ng devotion nila para dito sa Catholic Church.
Alright, maraming salamat, mobile journalist Amy Atienza.
Just a day before his passing, Pope Francis surprised the faithful with an appearance at the Vatican to deliver his Easter Sunday blessing. Here's the story.
Cheers filled the air as Pope Francis appeared from the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican on Easter Sunday. He is on a wheelchair, yet was still able to relay his greetings to the Catholic laity.
Cari fratelli e sorelle, buona Pasqua.
Pope Francis even met with U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance. Vance is a Catholic, and he visited Italy with his family this weekend.
Hello. So good to see you.
Recall that Pope Francis had criticized some policies of U.S. President Donald Trump, including the harsh immigration restrictions. A formal meeting followed with Vance and other Vatican officials, but the Pope was no longer able to attend. The announcement that followed was the sad news of Pope Francis's demise at the age of 88. He died at his official residence in Casa Santa Marta. Cardinals also made their official announcements. Before his demise, Pope Francis got confined for more than a month in Italy due to double pneumonia. Catholics flocked in Rome to pray for his recovery. He was able to survive, but doctors had advised him to take 2 months of rest.
Yun, 2 months, the doctors, we were talking about it even off air na the doctors were advising against any activity. But the Pope, though, was very adamant, especially now it's a Jubilee year. and that he wanted to be involved in the activities, at least at the pinaka-easiest way was delivering a message, di ba? Kahit yung hindi siya nag-homily, somebody else did the homily, but he had a message, and bumaba pa siya and interacted through the Pope Mobile going around sa crowd. Even that kind of activity, sinabi ng mga doctors, wag mong gagawin yan.
Di ba nga yung 38 days siya na na-confine sa hospital, tapos finally they released an audio recording of him.
Yes.
Di ba? Isa rin yun sa, kumbaga nag-lighten up doon sa mga devotees na knowing na he was doing well at that time.
Yeah, and tsaka when you saw the video during sa Easter Vigil, yung message niya, you could see na medyo hirap na si Pope Francis. Quite different from yung mga previous, in the previous, even this year, no? Although you see may mga signs already si Pope Francis that he is very sick. Kasi meron ata siyang problem sa hip or sa knee, di ba?
Nagka-ano siya, di ba? Kaya siya ACL tear.
Yeah,
kaya siya
na-operan siya eh.
Naka-wheelchair na prior to his hospitalization due to pneumonia.
Oo. So madami siyang health scares. But this one was different when he was released from yung hospital. Makikita mo yung the way he was putting down his head down. Sabi ng ibang doctor, they noticed na hindi niya ma-elevate yung And yung pala, when we were all reminded na when he was younger, a part of his lung was reduced.
Yeah.
Diba?
Due to lung infection.
Lung infection. Tapos ngayon, double pneumonia. And siguro right after the Easter, sobrang pagod ni Pope. Diba?
And I think sabi nga nila lahat daw ng Pope daw talaga, ang wish nila is to die in their homes, hindi sa ospital. Kaya siguro, that's one of the reasons bakit siya inalis na rin sa hospital at that time.
When he wanted to go,
Yeah.
yung pinaka-main reason was he wanted to attend, be part of the Easter Mass.
Yun na nga, circling back doon sa mga tradisyon, na mga proseso na ginagawa dito, headed by the Camerlengo, dahil nga wala na nga si Pope Francis. Kanina, we were able to mention here in the first part of our show na the door of the people's apartment has officially been closed. Nakasil na yon. Isa po yan sa mga proseso nila para daw maiwasan yung mga pagnanakaw, looting, or whatsoever. Isa rin po sa mga significant tradition na ginawa po nila ngayon ay yung pagwasak ng kanyang fisherman's ring along with the papal's seal. Kasi ito daw ay ginagawa para daw maiwasan yung mga pamimeke, 'di ba, yung mga forgery, kasi alam naman natin itong ring na to tsaka yung seal niya, yun ginagawa, parang pinakapirma niya sa mga dokumento, mahalagang dokumento na inilalabas mula sa opisina ng isang Santo Papa.
The seal of the Pope, ika nga.
Yes.
Although meron na ngayon daw modern electronic seal ang Pope, but of course the Church is very keen on tradition.
Yes.
So it's very important that they continue tradition. You remember when we were sa Vatican, ito sa, I think, the beatification of Pope John Paul. Hindi pa siya saint.
Hindi pa.
And ang nag-preside ng Mass na attend natin si, what's his name? Pope Benedict.
Pope Benedict.
The late Pope Benedict. And there he was, I think, part of his homily was talking about yung ring, how that there was a debate, or they wanted to preserve the ring of si John Paul, but they had to follow tradition because they wanted to, since he was beatified as magiging saint, and one of the fastest to be beatified to become saint, they wanted sana the ring preserved. But then, of course, they had to uphold tradition.
Yeah, tradition. So, yung part of the tradition, sarado na yung kanyang room sa kanyang papal's
Sealed
apartment.
off with the ribbon and the seal, wax
so,
seal.
until there's a new Pope na ma-announce sila, it's going to be remain.
Habang wala pang Habemus Papam, nakasil pa lahat yan.
Marami pa tayo pag-uusapan tungkol dito sa mga tradisyon, and of course yung mga pagninilay-nilay, di ba? Doon sa mga ginawa ni Pope Francis. We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back. You're still watching News and Views here on One News.
Now, Malacanang has declared April 22, 2025 as a National Day of Mourning in honor of the late national artist Nora Honor. For update, we have mobile journal Denise Valdez Sancho. Denise, nakamute ka.
We can't hear you.
Ayan.
Yes.
Ngayong umaga, Diego, Angela, kaalis lang, mga ilang minuto lang ng kabaong ng national artist and superstar na si Ate Guy o Nora Honor papunta nga sa kanyang libingan. Pero kanina, around 8 5:30 a.m. ay nanggaling ito sa Taguig para dalhin nga dito sa Metropolitan Theater dito sa Maynila. Nandito tayo sa Maynila ngayon para sa isang tribute program para kay Ate Gael. Ayan. Kanina, no, bukod sa, syempre, hindi may iwasan malungkot, may mga nagdadalamhati, may mga fans na nakaabang, pero binalot pa rin ng saya, tawanan, at syempre pag-alala. Itong naging program para kay Ate Gael.
Sino-sino ba yung mga kilalang personalities na nag-attend nito?
Ang unang mapapansin nating sasalubong dito sa pinatatayuan ko ngayon, yung alkalde ngayon ng Maynila, si Hani Lacuna. At pagpasok naman, syempre bukod sa pamilya na nakasunod sa kabaong, nandiyan sila National Artist Ricky Lee, nandiyan din ang kaibigan niyan na si Charo Santos. At ilan sa mga nagbigay mensahe, nauna na nga dyan, si Ricky Lee na kanina binanggit niya, kung i-describe niya raw si Ate Guy, mahihiyain. Kilala siya bilang mahihiyain, pero hindi pa rin maiwasan na makakuha ng sentro, makuha niya ang atensyon ng mga tao. Ganun daw talaga ang demeanor ni Ate Guy.
And of course, alam naman natin na she's a national artist at she will be given a state funeral. Can you take us through the process?
Ngayon, matapos nga itong program ni Ate Guy, nakatatapos lang mga bandang 11:15, asahan na natin na yung burial niya ngayon ay gaganapin sa libingan ng mga bayani. Around 12 p.m. yan, maaaring nandun na ang kanyang mga pamilya. May mga ilan na ring kaninang fans na humahabol. Paglabas dito ng kanyang kabaong sasakyan na nandun yung sa loob yung kanyang kabaong, yung mga fans na nakaabang. Pero sa mga gustong pumunta, dito yan sa libingan ng mga bayani.
Yes, Denise, ano yung mood ng mga, of course, yung family, mga anak ni Nora Honor na sila Matet, of course, sila Ian De Leon. Are they, kita mo, medyong, kasi yes, the first few days, medyong sila, distraught pero parang gumagaan yung mood nila later on nung ang daming tribute naglalabasan para kay Ate Guy. Ano yung mood nila ngayon?
Kanina, pagkatapak nila dito sa labas ng Metropolitan Theater, tahimik lang. Ang buong dadaan lang ako, may dumadaan
sige,
sasakyan. Pasensya na kaya. Pero kung itutuloy nga natin, kanina ay tahimik ang buong pamilya, lilipat lang tayo ni Ate Guy. Pero nung nagbigay rin ng mensahe, pinangunahan niya ng kanyang anak na si Ian De Leon nga ay hindi naman nagdadalumpati lang ang kanyang buong pamilya. Ngunit kanina may mga ilang umiiyak, pero mas nangingibabaw na lang siguro yung nananahimik at talagang dinadamdam ang ilang mga huling sandali na makakasama ang katawan ng kanilang ina.
Si Boyet, si Christopher De Leon, was he involved also in a lot of the planning?
Hindi na natin napansin dahil kanina ay sobrang dami ng taong nagkukumpulan, Pero tabi-tabi, halos ng pamilyang magkakapatid nandiyan, sila Matet, at yun nga, sila Ian. Pero hindi natin napansin kanina, nung nagbigay ng mensahe si Ian.
Okay. Ayan. During the tribute kanina, diyan sa ginawa sa MET, sa Met, ano-ano yung mga naging tribute sa kanya? Sino yung mga nagsalita? Can you tell us more about it?
Ayan. Kanina nabanggit natin, nagsalita nga si national artist Ricky Lee for a tribute, pero bukod dyan, talagang hindi natin makakalimutan, si Joel Lamangan, kilalang direktor, kilalang matalik na kaibigan ni Ate Guy, at syempre naging katrabaho niya na rin sa mga nagdaang panahon, napatawa niya pa rin yung audience, talagang bukod sa iyakan, nandun pa rin yung ngiti, yung pag-alala, yung antig-antig na mga alaalang binahagi niya sa mga kaibigan at sa mga Loranians. Isa sa mga hindi niya raw makakalimutan nung nakakatrabaho niya pa lang ang actress. May isa daw silang scene na nagugupitan ng buhok. Tapos nung makita niya daw yung mukha ng actress, yung maong actress, natulala na lang daw siya. At bukod dyan, dahil kilalang ang komedyante, talagang, kumbaga, ang role niya bilang kaibigan, naipakita niya at naibahagi niya, napadama niya sa mga audience. Pero pagkatapos noon, hindi na rin talaga maiwasan ng iyakan dahil ito nga natapos ang kanyang programa na lilipat na sa libingan ng mga bayani na para sa ilan sa mga Loranian. Ito na yung huling pagkakataon na kahit pa paano madadama nila yung presensya in Oro-Onoro.
Alright, sige, maraming salamat sa iyo sa ating mobile journal, Denise Valdesancho. Anyway, it's already na live stream yan sa Facebook page ng CCP at saka ng NCCA. Itong tribute nila kay
Ate Guy.
Nora Honor. Of course, notable projects ni Ate Guy ay yung Himala, 'di ba? The Floor Content.
Uy, kasama niya si daddy ko sa Carnival Song. Love interest ng daddy ko siya doon. Oo, yan.
Alright, balik naman tayo ulit tungkol pa rin sa pagpanaw ni Pope Francis. A Filipino priest who had a personal encounter with Pope Francis joins us today to share his memories and reflections following the pontiff's passing. We have Reverend Father Jason Gonzalez, Executive Secretary for CBCP Office on Bioethics. Father, welcome to News and Views. Good morning.
Good morning po to everyone.
Father, can you take us back to that moment? Paano po ba yung feeling nung kayo po ay, kumbaga nagkaroon po ng close encounter with Pope Francis?
Actually po, I was sent to study in Rome po the year 2019. But then the first time that I had this personal encounter with Pope Francis was already on the year 2021. So I made sure na after almost 2 years, sabi ko, I should really make time to be able to visit Pope Francis. So what I did, together with some Filipino communities, I attended a general audience. So at that time, I woke up very early at 6 a.m. to be able to attend sa 9 a.m. general audience ni Pope Francis. So what I did, ginawa ko po, because usually you should find a good spot on how you can actually have this opportunity to get a closer encounter with Pope Francis. So what I did, I sat at the back of those who are elderly and sickly, because Pope Francis will always make sure to reach out to them. So nung nandun na po ako sa spot na yon, then after his speech and message to everyone, he approached really the elderly. So when I saw Pope Francis approaching them, sabi ko, this is the time, ako na yung next, kasi I'm already at the back of those who are elderly and sickly. So I was actually preparing Latin sentences kasi Italian conversation with Pope Francis so that I can have this talk with him. But then what happened, when Pope Francis was already in front of me, nagka-mental blackout po ako. I forgot what to say. So what I can just say, I have a book with me. I just told Pope Francis, firmare, which means to sign. And what he did, he jokingly said, where? He hold my ball pen and place it at my forehead. So he was about to sign at my forehead. And I told Pope Francis, no, sa book ko po, at my book. And he actually humbly signed my book. And after which, that's the time that I was able to recall the conversation that I practiced. So I told Pope Francis in English, but in Italian, I go, Santo Padre, prega per me, per il mio doctorato. Pope Francis, pray for me for my doctorate. And he told me, how old are you? And I told him, at that time, I'm 32. And he replied, sabi niya, I thought you're just 14.
Father, well, we all know, Father, it's very, it's a nice story, no? We all know naman, all the popes, they're all humble, but may kanya-kanya silang imahe na binibigay, no? A lot has been said about Pope Francis, even while he was alive, that he was one of the most approachable and most straightforward popes, no? Parang he calls it out, tells it as it is. And when you encountered him for that brief minute or a few seconds, ano ang naramdaman mo sa kanya? Because we all know, even from a distance, like we were at a distance from Pope Francis, and there's a certain persona or electric feeling you get even when he passes you. Ikaw, Father, you were very close to him and even conversed with him. What was it like?
Actually, recalling it right now, sharing it with you, I cannot but feel so emotional. Because, for us Catholics, we consider Pope Francis as really the vicar of Christ.
Yes.
So knowing that it is Jesus who we encounter through him makes you feel that we have a Jesus who is very approachable through Pope Francis. So he makes us feel that, oh Lord, thank you for making us feel that our presence matters.
Yes.
Diba? Every time that, for example, Pope Francis makes this simple gesture, he makes you feel, I'm with you.
Totoo yan.
You're being
That's right,
feed.
that's right. Oo.
Right.
Think about this, your effort just to see me, I will also make time, even with this simple conversation, that I will sign a book and even talk with you. So
He gave his time, no?
imagine with that great experience, di ba po?
Despite of being busy. Pero Father, even if it's sad news, a lot of those who understand sa Catholic faithful, parang napangiti when we found out na when Pope Francis died was on Easter Monday. Because it's very significant for a Catholic to understand this also, given it's also a Jubilee year. Ano ang significance nito in terms of our faith that if you are blessed to have passed on this specific day?
Actually po, recalling even the coat of arms of Pope Francis, miserendo adque eligendo. So we can, right from the start of his papacy, we're also already being reminded of what he highlights. And he highlights mercy. And you cannot but be, I think it's God's providence that God called him in the Jubilee year of hope as well. Reminding us that God is very merciful to us, that there's something that we look forward to, and that is hope. That is the message of Easter.
Right.
That we have a loving God who is so generous and loving, and through His mercy, He reaches out to us. And that we always have something to look forward. Kaya nga po, di ba, if we have attended the Paschal Triduum, we're being reminded of the passion and death of Jesus. But it does not end there. We have something to look forward to. And that is Jesus' resurrection.
Tama.
That's right, that's right.
It's a message for us.
Yes.
Pope Francis died on Easter Monday.
Totoo.
We have to look forward. The best is yet to come.
Yes.
And that's our consolation as followers of Christ.
That's right.
Parang it's really good to see na that death is at the end of everything. Ika nga, yun nga po, while we mourn the passing of Pope Francis, we also feel blessed, no, that we get to experience his leadership in our lifetime. With that po, sa dami po ng mga nagawa niya, na naaalala natin sa kanya, ano po ba yung, para po sa inyo, yung legasiya na kanyang iiwan sa atin?
Actually po, hindi na po ako lalayo sa kanyang motto. Mercy. It's about mercy. And what is mercy? I would just like also, because I'm a Dominican, of course, I was also in St. Thomas Aquinas, when he defines mercy is the highest manifestation of God's omnipotence. I repeat po. Mercy is the highest manifestation of God's omnipotence. And through Pope Francis, in his papacy, he made us feel this mercy. That he reaches out to everyone.
That's right, that's right, that's right.
Includes everyone. He never excluded. Because he wants us to feel that we are at home in the church.
Right.
And that's the best way on how we can really call all people. Because we're reminded Jesus does not condemn sinners. He condemned the sin.
That's right.
And that Pope Francis continuously invites us, not only the righteous, but us sinners. That's why we're going back to his motto itself, it reminds us of the call of St. Matthew. Tax collector, a public sinner. So I think in the papacy of Pope Francis, that is the same message for us. How could you? But it does not end there by receiving mercy. No?
Right.
Yes, God forgives us. He's generous to us. But it calls us to sin no more. I think it does not stop there. No, yes, Pope Francis invites us to be with him. We're all welcome. But Pope Francis also would want to accompany, di ba yung po laging term niya, accompanying, discerning, so that we can be guided to really follow the path of Jesus.
That's right.
So, fully with this, I think we have so much reason to be thankful for the life of Pope Francis.
That's
so,
right.
yes, we're mourning, but we are also filled with hope.
Yes.
That's right. You use the word guided, Father, which is very interesting. It's because knowing Pope Francis and how his previous homilies, he would like the church not to stop, but to move on immediately right after his passing. Now, of course, I have to ask you this, that moving forward, we all know that Pope Francis ran the church by directly interacting with people, a pastoral style, parang missionary style, no? Bringing the church to the people, not like in the olden times, the people had to come to the church to get to know the church. Moving forward, the impact niya na ito, do you think, I have to ask you, the next Pope, makonsider kaya ng Holy Spirit na impart sa cardinals na sana ang pipiliin niya would have the same approach?
Same direction, moving
the same
forward.
direction?
We cannot actually, we can just pray and hope for a better future ahead of the church. But then it is difficult to really know and assess where the Holy Spirit is leading us. As you have mentioned, I was listening in your conversation a while ago that every pope has something to focus.
Yes.
every pope has something that a particular aspect in the church that they see that it needs to be developed and improved. So most probably, it is really the work of the Holy Spirit. We really believe that it is the work of the Holy Spirit that from each papacy, there is something that we need to improve.
May distinct no?
The one that we got from Pope Francis, we learned from it. And we hopefully look forward what the Holy Spirit will direct us in this coming election or the conclave. So I think what Pope Francis is teaching us in his papacy to be open to the workings of the Holy Spirit.
That's right.
So wherever the Holy Spirit lead us, we are properly disposed.
That's right, I agree.
Father, very quickly na lang po, kasi we don't have much time. Pero alam naman po natin, given na yon kapag Catholic ka, nasasaktan ka sa pagpanaw ng iyong Santo Papa. Pero ngayon po nakikita po natin yung kumbaga impact nito outside the Catholic Church as well. There are other people who are, mourning his passing, etc., affected, why do you think so?
Because for us, it is because in the holiness of life of Pope Francis enables us, there's more to our teachings. It's not something that you just learn, but it's something that you live. And when you live a life of faith, this will actually empower other people as well, regardless of their denomination. And that is the challenge for us, not only by Pope Francis, but Jesus himself, to be able to be witnesses of the joy that we have received from Jesus. Because if we really have received something that is good, we cannot but share it to others, regardless of what your faith, regardless of your denomination. And that's actually Pope Francis, to reach out to everyone. You will not be excluding anyone. So through this way of life, I think people are actually enthused. No? They are encouraged. Oh, wow, he's doing such things, not just here, it's also here. And not only here, it's being put into practice. And that is actually something that we can all learn from. No? When we see someone who lived the faith, he really lived it.
And before we let you go, Father, I just have to say, yeah, I agree with Pope Francis. You do look like a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
So I just had to say that, Father.
All right, very well said. Maraming salamat po sa inyong oras. That was Reverend Father Jason Gonzalez of the CBCP. Thank you so much.
Thank you, po. Thank you.
Such a positive and young vibe na binibigay ni Father na natuwa ako.
Parang when he was telling us the story, parang feeling ko nandun din ako kasama niya.
Tsaka tinitignan ko, sabi ko, pwede ko siya maging anak sa edad niya. Anyway, don't go away. We're not done yet. We still have a lot more. Stay with us.
Pope Francis was history's first Latin American pope. He was history's first Jesuit pope. And he was the first one to name himself after St. Francis of Assisi. That Franciscan friar was a real lover of nature, and that message really came through in the emphasis that Pope Francis placed on caring for the environment. He made climate change and the need to combat it a real hallmark of his papacy. He wrote an entire encyclical about the environment and really pressed world leaders to take action to keep global warming in check.
God bless you. Continue to walk, eh? Continue, eh? Go ahead.
Some of the other big areas of concern for the Pope was the poor. He traveled around the world and always met with people in the slums, in prisons, everyone on the margins of the society. They were his priority. He was the Pope of the peripheries because he believed that that was who needed to hear the message of the gospel the most. He said that the Vatican and the Catholic Church should be a field hospital for wounded souls, and that was what carried through his papacy. Pope Francis was not afraid of showing his own vulnerabilities. When his knees gave out and he could no longer walk comfortably, he used a wheelchair or a cane. And he even traveled around the world in that capacity, using a wheelchair, elevators to get up and down from airplanes. He wanted to minister to his people no matter where they were and no matter what his own physical condition was. He also wasn't afraid to apologize when he himself made mistakes or when he had to apologize on behalf of the entire Catholic Church. When he misjudged a serious case of clergy abuse in Chile, he apologized. He invited the victims to come to the Vatican to hear that apology in person. He also apologized on behalf of the Church for the wrongs committed against indigenous peoples. He traveled to Canada to make that apology in person to bring the message to the people most affected.
De este proceso es hacer una seria búsqueda de la verdad acerca del pasado.
Welcome back. You're still watching News and Views here on One News.
Pope Francis made his historic visit to the Philippines in 2015, bringing comfort and hope to a nation still reeling from the devastation of Super Typhoon Yolanda. We now look back at this unforgettable moment in history.
A decade has passed since Pope Francis visited the Philippines. When his plane landed on January 15, 2015, he chose the open-air Pope Mobile over a bulletproof ride. He toured the streets of Manila, greeted by thousands of Filipinos who fondly called him Lolo Kiko. Pope Francis is the third pontiff to visit the country, following Pope Paul VI and Pope John Paul II. As part of his 5-day visit, he stopped by Malacanang and celebrated Mass at the Manila Cathedral, just like his predecessors. The pontiff also addressed Filipino families in Pasay.
And I remember my family, my father, my mother, my grandfather's mother. Today I rest with you.
But one of the most unforgettable moments was his visit to Tacloban. Despite the storm, the Taclobanons gave him a warm, heartfelt welcome. He celebrated Mass for the victims of Typhoon Yolanda and, in an emotional moment, set aside his prepared speech. He also visited Ground Zero in Palo Leyte, where the devastation of Yolanda was felt most.
When I saw from Rome that catastrophe,
Sentí que tenía que estar aquí.
I felt that I had to be here.
Que Jesús no defrauda.
And he never lets us down.
After Tacloban, Pope Francis returned to Manila to visit the University of Santo Tomas, where thousands of youth were eagerly waiting. A former street child asked the Pope why bad things happen to children.
Bakit po pumapayag ang Diyos na may ganitong nangyayari? Kahit walang kasalanan ang mga bata. At bakit kaunti lang ang mga taon tumutulong sa amin?
The Pope was caught off guard by the question.
The great question of why so many children suffer, she did this crying.
Y la gran respuesta que podemos hacer todos nosotros
And the response that we can make today is
aprender a llorar.
Let us learn, really learn how to weep, how to cry.
The Pope concluded his visit with a historic Mass at the Carino Grandstand. Even under the rain, 6 million Filipinos came, marking the largest people gathering in history. It was truly a once-in-a-lifetime experience to be visited by the Pope. The mercy and compassion that Pope Francis shared with us is something we will never forget, even after his passing. For News 5, Mon Gualvez, we are One News.
To share his reflections on the legacy that Pope Francis leaves behind, we have with us Catholic Media Network CEO and President, Reverend Father Francis Lucas. Father, welcome to News and Views. Thank you very much for joining us.
A blessed morning to us all.
Okay, Father, let's get right to it. Now, what was your initial reaction to the Pope's passing on an Easter Monday nonetheless?
I was a bit surprised, but not truly surprised, because his health condition never really developed better than during his ailments.
Yes.
Doctors were very careful in giving us the information. It became stable at the time that the condition of his health was really bad, especially pneumonia. But then I still wanted him to go on with life because there's so many things to be done, and his leadership is such an inspiration to us.
That's right.
Father, you have a close encounter with Pope Francis. I was wondering if you can share with us what stood out the most to you about Pope Francis's personality as well as his message. No?
Well, during the election of Pope Francis, I was the spokesperson still of the Catholic Bishops' Conference at the time when he was there, when he was here. So I had to go around and I have to study a lot about his background. What I saw was, number one, that he embedded himself with the poor in the favelas, in the urban poor,
Yes, that's right.
or we call squatters. And he really promoted justice. And also, he never wanted people being exploited and bullied. So he really fought for that, even with his priests. So when he became Pope, he walked the talk, which is very important. And he wanted unity for everybody. And he has a staunch heart by even giving criticism or his own moral thoughts about what's happening in the world, like what's happening among the Palestine people. Also, he even pricked Donald Trump for his migration policies. He was not afraid, but he did it in a nice way. And for me, the ultimate sacrifice he did on behalf of peace in South Sudan, when he kissed the foot of an Arab who
That's right.
who was leader in a very conflict situation in Sudan.
That's right.
My God, I had goose pimples seeing this. How can such a holy Pope kneel down and kiss the feet of a leader of a nation, which is not the leader of the world, and he was a leader of 1.4 plus billion Catholics in the world. See that this kind of heart of mercy and compassion, and searching for peace and fighting for peace.
And Father, the Pope also had ecumenical gatherings with other faiths. You have mentioned he kissed the feet of an Arab leader. What message then should us Catholics learn or receive from the Pope reaching out to other faiths?
There are three, for me, important legacy he has. Number one is unity. Unity is let's come together despite our differences, which is the purpose of true communication. He wants everybody to accept everybody else, even the sinners. They have to be accepted, but not in a permissible way. That's why he convert people. So all religions, he wants us to come together for a purpose for this world, to make this world a better place to live in. Like the destruction of the environment, the destruction of people, the destruction of our morality. He wanted peace for everybody. So that is the kind of unity he was searching and he was fighting for. Number two, the meaning of service. Service in the church. Service as pastors, not only priests, but all leaders of the Catholic laity has to do this, the sense of service, of giving yourself in mercy and compassion. And lastly, by loving others to be an inspiration of Christ's.
Right.
And of course, the third value or legacy he has is his pursuit of justice and peace.
Right.
Yes, and this is a very important legacy. For example, when he went to Tacloban, that was really, we went there before he came. And then I was so surprised. I was just thinking, there is a storm. The rain is so strong. I will not come. He might not be able to come. And people tell him, don't go there. You might get stuck in Tacloban. No, he said, no, I have to go. For me, wow. What kind of heart he had. He had to be one with the victims of the disaster. So people were crying. And to see him in that plastic raincoat. Yung Pope na plastic raincoat. And then his mass, and that was very meaningful. And his plane almost was unable to leave the place.
Yeah.
Few minutes after, the third plane could not fly anymore.
Yeah. Meaningful in a way na he even said na, I am late but I am here. Tumagos yun sa puso nating lahat. Di ba po? Alright, sige po.
Alright, thank you very much for your time. That was Catholic Media Network CEO and President, Reverend Father Francis Lucas. Father, thank you again for joining us.
God bless you, God bless you, God bless you.
Alright,
Yet again, we still, basta we remember his work, his legacy, diba? Being the most inclusive Pope, sabi nga nila, and his teachings of humility and of course mercy. We will forever remember him, our Santo Papa,
si Lolo
Pope
Kiko.
Francis.
Si Lolo Kiko, and we were blessed to have seen him for 3 seconds.
To be in the same soil is already a gift that was given to us, diba?
And that wraps up today's episode of News and Views.
Join us again tomorrow. I'm Angelo Castro.
And I'm Angelo Castro III. We are One News.
All sides, all the time.